Emboss Resist is a beautiful technique when done over white, ivory, and other solid color cardstocks and papers. But you can add a twist to this embossing technique by stamping your image first over some pattern paper and then adding color on top. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this technique. First, you're going to need a chunky stamp, and I'm using the butterfly image from the Enjoy the Sunshine Stamp TV kit. Then, you're going to need some Versamark ink and an anti-static pad. You're going to need some embossing powder, and I'm using the Ranger Superfine Detail Clear. And to add my color, I'm going to use some of the new Tim Holtz Distress inks. The colors I'm going to use are Crushed Olive, Broken China, and Black Soot. And then I'm going to use the Ink Essentials foam applicators to apply the color. For my patterned paper, I've chosen one of the pattern papers from the Enjoy the Sunshine Stamp TV kit, and this is the white cream colored linen. Just a beautiful soft texture for behind this emboss technique. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to start by using my anti-static pad and getting rid of any moisture or oil that might be on the surface of my piece of patterned paper so that I only get embossing powder where I want it. Then next, using some Versamark, I'm going to stamp the butterfly image. My first butterfly I'm going to stamp right in the center of this strip. And I'm going to do that because I want the full butterfly image as my focal image right in the center. Stamp that first. And then I'm going to stamp 4 more butterflies as if they're flying in and out of my picture. And although you probably can't see this ink going on the camera, when you're doing it in person, you'll be able to see that the Versamark ink leaves a watermark on your paper, so you're able to see exactly where the butterflies are so you don't overlap on top of any of them. And my last one is going to go up in this corner like this. Okay. Now my next step is to add some embossing powder, and I'm going to do that by putting a piece of scratch paper down first and then pouring the embossing powder all over the surface of my butterflies. Just grab a small little piece there. And now the embossing powder's on. I'm just going to blow away the excess. And I'm going to replace the rest of the powder into the jar. One more time, make sure there's no excess, because I don't want embossing powder anywhere except on my butterflies, because when I add the ink on top, I want that ink to not stick to anything, any of the butterflies or any embossing powder except where I want it. Okay. I'm going to start to emboss, and what you'll see, and you may be able to pick this up on the camera, is as the butterflies become embossed, they just turn shiny, smooth, and clear. And once they turn shiny, smooth, and clear, you want to stop. You don't want to keep embossing over those same areas, or you can burn the embossing powder. I'm just going to keep turning it to keep my fingers out of the way. Of course, you can use a tweezer to hold on to your paper. You can also use a clothespin, but I don't mind just turning it and keeping my fingers out of the way. And now you should be able to see on the camera as I turn it the shininess of those butterflies against the muted background of the linen paper. Once the embossing powder is cooled, and you can touch it lightly to make sure that it's cooled, it's ready to have the ink applied. So I'm going to start with some Broken China ink, and I'm going to apply this ink in a circular motion using one of the foam ink blending tools. And you can see the way I'm going to do this, just in a circular motion. I'm going to bring some of that ink in. I'm not going to ink everywhere. I'm just going to randomly choose some areas to ink. since I'm using more than one color, I want it to kind of blend. It's okay if it wrinkles a little bit because you're going to tape it all down. It'll be nice and flat again. Okay, so there's the broken china ink. Now the next layer of ink I'm going to add is some crushed olive. I'm going to try to fill in those other areas, and there'll be a little bit of overlap, which will blend the colors really nicely together. Like that. All right, and there we go. So, as you can see, the butterflies have now emerged, the linen butterflies have emerged from behind all of that color. But they're still not vibrant enough. And the way to make them a little bit more vibrant is to add a little bit of black soot ink just right around the butterflies to really create some contrast and really make them pop off of the paper. So, just lightly around the butterflies, I'm going to add some of that black soot. See how that looks? And you still can see the beautiful colors from behind coming through. But it really does make them show up a lot better. And my final step is to take a piece of paper towel and then just wipe over the surface of the butterflies to remove any excess ink that's on top of them. And again, don't worry if your paper wrinkles, because once you put tape on the back, it'll lay nice and flat. Here's my final project. What I've done here is I've just placed that strip of butterflies onto a piece of black onyx cardstock to just make it pop a little bit. And I've used a background paper, the same ivory white linen, and then I've stamped the greeting right on the edge there of that linen paper. Try Emboss Resist over bright, busy pattern papers for a fun and wild look, or stick with soft textures like this linen paper for a more delicate and peaceful look.